Greetings, shippers, and welcome back to another episode of Fanversations. Today, we're joined by Luna Malfoy 7, aka Riley. We discuss a rather fascinating subset of fandom, the fandom Wikias, and what it takes to be an admin on one. So if you were intrigued by the people who actually help curate some of this meta-fandom material, then this is the Fanversations for you. Find out what goes on these pages, who posts there, and how it impacts fandom. It's a good, intriguing conversation. I will of course have all of Luna's information down below. Heads up, we did have some reverb issues, so if you have headphones, just be forewarned. For forewarned is forearmed. Before we get started, if you haven't already, please do follow on social media to stay up to date, know when we're streaming, and just come on over and chit chat about fandom. It's a good time, I swear. These are always long, so without further ado, let's get right into the video. Greetings, shippers, welcome back. It's Sasha here with
Riley. I'm Luna Malfoy 7 on pretty much every social media, Twitter, Instagram. The place you're probably going to find me best is Tumblr. I don't really use any other social media, again, besides Wikia, so, which isn't really a social media, so.
So you have a bit of a fascinating fandom occupation. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about that?
So, kind of when you're like an admin on the Wikia, you kind of have to monitor every single thing like that's going on. And while there are like certain you kind of get like used to which users you can like trust to not mess up the Wikia, but then sometimes a new user will come in and it's like, okay, I have to get used to you. Do I know? I don't know you. And so you have to monitor everything they do. And I'm constantly checking like the recent activity just to make sure like there's nothing I have to like constantly change. It also you also kind of have to make all the big decisions for the Wikia. Like we have so many policies, we had to like make a page for it, which existed before I came on as an admin, but like still we have to also constantly update it and then no one reads it, so.
So what are some of the policies? Because as you say, no one reads it, so.
So for shipping Wikia, we have policies for our character pages just simply because we don't want it overflowed with character pages, which used to happen. We used to have characters that would have no ship pages or like one ship page. So we had to like up it to like 5, and then we were like, well, maybe we should have more pages like listed on the thing, like 10 pages listed on it, and then like make the pages like 5 non-stubs, because otherwise people will go, I'm going to make a page, I'm going to make a page, I'm going to make a page, and you end up with like 5 blank pages and like 1 character page, and it was only made for the character page, and that's just annoying. And then we have a similar rule for our fandom page, but like it's easier to get a fandom page up just simply because it's not specifically for one character. Like you don't have to think, oh, I need 5 pages to get Hannibal Lecter on here, versus like if you want to get the Hannibal on there, it's like, oh, 5 pages, that's easy. Well, not really easy because you have to still fill them all out, but still. I keep leaning back, I need to stop.
How active do you find that people are in different sections of the wiki, or do you find that it just really depends on what is popular at the moment in general fandom terms?
So, like, do you mean most visited or most edited?
Let's start with most edited.
Edited, it's like a whole range of things, but occasionally you'll just like get a bunch of updates for like one fandom, and it'll always be like one little small thing that people are updating. Voltron fandom, like we had to like block everything like right before the new season started, just so like we wouldn't get like all of that. Like anime is always popular on there. My Hero Academia, like a lot of those get edited a lot. For a while, Danganronpa was also pretty big. I was following the page and I had to stop because like I kept getting emails that just said, it has been updated. It has been updated like 20 times a day. And I'm like, I can't. I don't even like Danganronpa that much. Like I had to stop. So it's mostly just a range. We've had a lot of Once Upon a Time updates just simply because a new user like really likes Once Upon a Time. So who knows?
Has it impacted how you view fandom in general, being like kind of in charge of overseeing a lot of this stuff?
It has made me more tired than usual, I'm gonna be honest. Just simply because, you know, you have to like, because it used to be like, oh, I can do whatever I want in fandom, and then it's like, oh no, I have to be in charge and make sure people aren't like being mean or like adding in inaccurate information just simply because they like a certain thing more. And like on the one hand, I've always found it kind of annoying when like people will like, if I'm like following a page on Wikia and like people add in inaccurate information, I never like that. But at the same time, I just kind of ignored it mostly, and then just like, oh, let someone else will handle it, and then it's like, nope, now I gotta handle that. So that's fun. But it's also just, it makes you kind of look at all your other social media a little bit different. Tumblr feels a bit different just simply because we have a fanon section, so I'm always feel like I have to take notes whenever I'm in a Tumblr tag, like, oh, this is how they're reacting to this. This is how they're reacting to this. This is how like things are going on, and you have to be very neutral on everything versus like very passionate or very like impassionate. So
have you found that that kind of in some ways forced dispassion has impacted your own thought process in terms of the fandoms that you are very passionate about?
Like I never get to the point of illogic where it's like super mean, but like I get very, very excited for things or like, you know, stuff like that. Like how I would describe it is like I still end up like kind of like taking the notes even when I am super passionate. It's just that like I have to go back and re-edit them like, Riley, calm down. No.
When it comes to inaccurate information and stuff being posted, does that happen a lot, or is that more of a byproduct of, let's say, like the Voltron fandom is an easy example, like when something pops up or something changes, or especially in that fandom because things change so rapidly, like is it more a facet of just when people are super passionate about it, or again do you get those outliers where someone new will kind of come into the fandom and be like, well, I'm gonna change all of the pages?
It's a mix of both. Like some people will just randomly be like, you know what, I'm gonna change it from fanon to canon because I can, and then some people are like, no, it's canon, it's canon, it's canon, and it's like, no, it's not. Like I've double checked this, and it's easy for me with Voltrons and just simply because I watch Voltron and like I know what's going on. But then you get something like My Hero Academia, which I'm not in, so like, do I know if Bakudeku is canon? The answer is no, it's not, according to everyone who like has been telling me it's not canon, it's not canon. But everyone keeps setting it to canon or semi-canon, which we use if like someone has a crush on someone, but like there's not an actual relationship. And then sometimes it's like you'll get like a ship where it's like in the middle, like randomly it'll be like, oh, this is canon. It's like, the show has been off for like years. Why have you changed it? It's fanon, honey. Like, sorry. Kind of end up leaving a message for those people, and then they like never show up on the wiki again. So like, we know why you were here.
Do you find that you discover more ships or more fandoms now that you're involved in the editing of the pages?
Yeah, I discovered that apparently Family Guy has a weird amount of like ships, and just what ended up happening was just one user just added like 100 different Family Guy ships and then added nothing. Like not that many, but it was like a lot. It felt like 100, and it was like, I'm just gonna add these ships. Okay, are you gonna do anything with the? No. Okay, bye. And they didn't even leave. They just kept coming back and adding more, and it's like, add something. And that just kind of ends with the frustration. So again, just some things like you don't know like what ends up like having a big shipping fandom. So a lot of it will shock you.
How did you end up being an admin?
So the creator of the Wikia itself, Fitzaby, he contacted me and was like, hey, you've been making a lot of edits. Another new admin recommended you. Would you like to take it up? And I said, yeah, sure. And yeah, that's just pretty much it. There's no other, it's just that short. Like,
how much time do you find that it takes up?
Like willingly, I give up like probably a good chunk of my time, just not because like I'm going through like the recent edits just to make sure everything is like accurate. Like sometimes I'll go back and be like, okay, what pages can I add to? Because we end up with a lot of pages that are just
blank.
This blank is the shift name between blank and blank from the blank fandom, and then nothing else, and it's just so I always end up like trying to do what I can for as many of like the shorter pages as possible. They always end up being kind of rare pairs, but at the same time you'll get like a super popular one that's down there. Like I think there's a couple of Teen Wolf ones that are super, super short, and like you would expect them to be longer, but they're not.
So how did you get into fandom in general?
Okay, so I would say it was probably Harry Potter. Like, I remember being in middle school and like the second to last movie was coming out, and I'm like, okay, so I know this is a thing, so I better like read the books and like everything, and it just like took over my life for the longest time. Like
Mm-hmm.
in middle school, I was the Harry Potter girl, and there was another girl who was known as the Harry Potter girl, and they're like, you're worse than that Harry Potter girl. So like, yeah, no one liked how obsessed I was with Harry Potter. So, and it just continued like throughout all of middle school, and then in high school it was just kind of like like kind of a background thing. And I ended up somewhere between like the end of middle school and like start of high school. I found Tumblr, and I was seeing like all the fandoms there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was vaguely aware of what Doctor Who was because some Harry Potter pages I followed on Facebook would like post Doctor Who things. And so I kind of found out about Super Wholock through that and just kind of like stumbled like through like added on to my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd always been kind of like super passionate about like fictional universes. Just I remember when I was little, like I had a schedule for like my Saturday morning
Mm-hmm.
cartoons, and I would be so into them, and I'd like go see my friends, and I'd be like, guys, guess what happened on like Batman yesterday? And they'd be like, Riley, we don't watch Batman. I'm like, no, but Batman. And it's like, they didn't care, and like no one cared, and I was so upset, and like I had to like I had other things I liked, but I wanted to talk about like all the other all my like fandom things, which I didn't call it fandom back then because I was 6.
So then when you found online fandom, was that like a really big revelation of like there was this whole group of people who were into like the same things and that you could talk about it with?
I think it just was like a passive revelation because I think I like, what happened with me was I got a Facebook and then I started I liked the Harry Potter page and then I liked another fan page and then I liked another fan page and then I liked another fan page and it ended up with me just like, I was so annoying on Facebook because I liked all the Harry Potter pages, and this was back when like they would say like which pages you liked, and
Oh yeah.
everybody would be like, Riley, I'm gonna unfriend you if you keep liking this many Harry Potter pages. And I'm like, no, it's not my fault. I just like Harry Potter. People would bring it up at school. That's how like bad it got. I was 12, okay?
So do you find that you're still just as passionate about your fandoms?
Yeah, it's just kind of like more, I know when to like talk about them, but sometimes it'll be like, if like it's super, super new and like I haven't been online, like Voltron season 7, I'm gonna be honest, like I had to leave somewhere immediately afterwards. So like I couldn't be like super passionate about it online. So I'm like in my car at red lights, reblog this thing from Tumblr, reblog this thing from Tumblr. And then like I told the people I was meeting, hey, I need to say this thing super quick, otherwise I'm gonna explode. And like they got it, they got it.
So which fandoms would you say you're the most involved in right now?
Um, Again, probably Voltron, just simply because again, season 7 came out and it actually like got me to want to write fan fiction again, and I'm writing fan fiction again because of the thing. And my other one is probably Legends of Tomorrow, just simply because I love it so much. Like I can't stop not like loving it. It's great. I love it.
So how long have you written fan fiction for?
I wrote my first fan fiction my junior year of high school. It was like this Once Upon a Time AU,
Mm-hmm.
where like instead of Mary Margaret being pregnant, I like hated how much Belle had nothing to do in the show. So
Mm-hmm.
like I made her be the one who was pregnant, and like she became like a main thing. But then I also ended up, I like didn't want to kill off Neil, and I accidentally paired him with Regina, and then I'm like, oh, I get this. I like this. I love this. And it
Mm-hmm.
just like became my rare pair. Like when people are like, what's your rare pair? I'm like, that. And they're like, that makes no sense. And I can justify it, I swear.
That's the thing with most rare parrots. It's like, no, think about it. It makes sense. You just need to take a moment and ponder and follow it through. Follow past that initial block of, but why though? And then
If they had screen time together, like they were both Henry's parents. Come on, think about it. Think
oh,
about it.
I'm still sad about Neil, so
I like cried over Neil's death, and my little sister, like when she started watching once, like she was like, "Oh, he died. It's fine." Like I didn't really care, and I'm like,
My husband was so angry. He was like, "What an emotional cop out," and I was like, "I know, right? They could have had so much."
It was for the love triangle. We all know it. We all know it. He had potential.
He was in the way. He was in the way of Captain Swan. It's been years, and I'm still kind of like,
I'm always gonna be mad about that. Just like, please, why did you do that? But Once Upon a Time just lends itself to fan fiction, I feel like.
It does. It's like certain shows and genres just are inherently more either shippable or fickable than others, and once has both of those things going for it at the same time. Yep. Voltron does too, more so than I truly believe the creators expected, but it does.
Sorry, the lights turn off here. It's based on motion. Like, I swear I'm in here. Okay. I 100% agree. I don't think they expected it. Like, I think especially the network expected it even less. Just not the network, the studio DreamWorks. Mm-hmm. I think they just wanted to like make kind of like what the 80s Voltron was, like slightly more updated, like with not much character and just like fighting robots, and then like you ended up with an audience that kind of I'm gonna be honest, they expected like Avatar or Legend of Korra.
Yeah, and like one can argue back and forth about whether those expectations are fair or not, but it does remain that they did exist, and so there were people going into it even from the start with that lens. I remember it when it first started. People were already saying it's going to be like these things because they have so much overlap in staff, and then I remember checking the staff overlap, and I was like, it's not that much staff. Like the way people were talking about it was like every single staff member, and it was like, well, okay, like it's not that much staff, guys.
It's like two people. It's like two people, guys. Calm down. Calm down.
Two people from like two different positions from two different shows and two different eras. And I was like, guys, we need to calm down. The thing with like Voltron, and then just in general, fandom in particular, like Voltron is easy to talk about because so many things about fandom just all happen to play out within Voltron. But it's just, it feels a lot like there's been a bit of a shift in fandom in terms of how reactive people are. Not that people are like more or less passionate than they ever were, because fans have always been a passionate lot. Fans are passionate, but it seems of late, and by a shift I mean over the past several years, that there has just been an increase in the initial vitriol of reactions. Like, what do you think?
I think the internet plays like kind of a big part in that, just simply because it's there and like you can access a lot, and so people can find the bad stuff easier, they can find the good stuff easier, they can like find people that are validating their opinions easier. So it just kind of like keeps going back and forth, where you kind of end up having like no one's ever quiet now. So
there's lots of interesting stuff happening. Like, I saw two recent, at the time of this recording, incidents that were fascinating, which was, one is the Leah Kira thing, which it's very fascinating, the two
What is going on with that? I don't know.
It's like there are two competing narratives going on with that are fascinating in how much they're growing and how dissonant they are from each other. There's one that's like, these are haters of the show who have created a reboot and are trying to like destroy the entire canon of the show. And you have the complete opposite of, this has reignited passion in a fandom from a show that has continued to disappoint. And I'm just like, this is interesting. This is very interesting. And in the center, I do feel very bad because the two original posters are getting a lot of hate thrown their way, and they had to issue statements. They were like, we are high school students who created an AU, and I'm just like,
I know. I feel so bad for them. Like I know I like know what's going on, but like I don't know what's going on. I know people like created an AU and they're like, it's a reboot, it's a reboot. And it's like, no, there's a difference, guys. Like they have no power whatsoever right now. Like you need to understand the difference between like those two things. And
Because there's a lot going on, because the people who are looking at it, you have a bunch of people looking at it. You have a variety of shippers and transformative fans. Then you also have people who, because people forget when they're in the subset of fandom that we are, that there are tons of people who are outside of it who don't fully grasp it and don't want to. And so there are a lot of people who, when they see AUs, they don't understand them in general. So when you see such a targeted AU, despite the fact that AUs occur all of the time, and that it's not even uncommon for an AU to take off and become its own thing, like say a Reverse Falls, or even like Altean Lance, and like all of that kind of stuff that's already taken off, a lot of people see these as a rejection of the canon, and they're like, you did this because you hate it. And it's like, well, I'm sure some people did, but that's a very broad statement to apply to everybody. It's a lot of broad statements. Like, it makes me think of the other fascinating thing I saw at the same time, which was the Witcher audition script leaked, and a bunch of people, even though the person who was doing the audition said, okay, I have a pretty good feeling that this script is going to leak. And let me just tell you, before it leaks, that these are simply demo dialogues. They do not necessarily reflect what will be happening in the final product. Calm down. So it leaked. Of course it did. And instantly everybody went off there. Like, either it went from like, this is wonderful and I love it, to like, this is the most inaccurate representation of these characters that I have ever seen. And the person came on, they were like, okay, firstly, we told you this was an audition demo. Secondly, I hope you are this passionate for the real show. And I just had to laugh, but it was very interesting because there were these like really in-depth, like whole like canon breakdowns, and like this character would never say this, and all of this kind of stuff. And I was like,
I don't know how audition scripts work, but I like can get enough to know that like they're pretty inaccurate and like not a reflection of what's going on in the show. So
like, let us never forget the gloriousness that was Tom Hiddleston auditioning for Thor. I mean,
I have no memory of that. I was like 10 then and didn't care about Marvel. So I think I've seen that actually. Like, no, Tom, no.
That's the thing. It's like there are so many wonderful fandom things out there that it is always a shame when like negativity tends to overpower or be the thing that's focused on. So what are some of the more positive aspects that fandom has brought to you?
Just kind of, I've met like a lot of good people. Kind of what happens is like I'm messaging them and it's like, hey, this is great. We have this thing in common, and then like disappear, never speak again. But at the same time, it made me feel kind of less alone, because when I was in middle school, everyone hated it. Like, I always keep bringing up middle school. Riley, stop bringing up middle school. But like, it was what I loved, and there was no one for me to like enjoy it with. And my little sister is enjoying a lot of the same shows, but she's not like in that fandom aspect kind of thing. Like at best she'll go on and like search the Twitter, but the Twitter, which I don't understand. But I don't really get that whole like fan fiction, like fandom thing with her. Like I have someone now who I like recently found out like did all that, and like we talk back and forth, but like we don't see each other that often. But there are now people out there, it's like, oh, you like fanfic, I like fanfic, let's talk. And I'm actually really good friends with another one of our admins just simply because of the Wikia. So
So do you find that that is an easier way to meet people? Like when you're meeting people in real life, and you know, do you find that it's still a difficult thing to bring up, or is it easier now?
Some things are easier. Like I try and like, here's the thing, I'll like try and find the fandom. I won't bring up any of the fandom aspects though. It's like, oh, you play Overwatch, I play Overwatch. You like Marvel, I like Marvel. And then like I'll try and like get somewhere from there. But like I don't really bring up fan fiction unless I'm like kind of get a vibe from them. And it's weird. Like I'm very good at being able to tell, but at the same time I'm like, is it? Do you? I'm like so nervous about bringing it up in real life. So yeah.
The people, There are a variety of reactions.
Hmm.
There are people who are just confused, which I think is one of the more positive reactions. Like, outside of people getting it and liking it, I'd say confusion is definitely one of the more positive reactions. Because I do find that when you're talking to certain people about it and it comes up, sometimes you get that, oh, so you're one of those girls. Kind of reactions.
Yeah.
And firstly, it's just,
Yeah.
well, what does that mean, though? But secondly, it's just, then you end up in this awkward position of, do I launch into a positive diatribe about the benefits of fan fiction and like the creative space and endeavors?
I don't got time for that. I don't got time for that.
Again, or is it just like, okay, well, guess that avenue, we have reached an impasse, and that is...
All right, our friendship goes this far.
We will never speak of this again.
Yep. Yep. I brought up one of my Legends of Tomorrow ships to my little sister, and she was like, really? And I'm like, I enjoy it. And she's like, but really? Really? Like, they're not that way. And I'm like, but ship. They would be good together, especially, yeah.
So, for you, when people don't grasp a ship or shipping, what do you find is that they normally go to? Do you find it's like a lack of chemistry? Do you find it's a lack of canon basis? Or what is it that you find is usually the impasse that keeps them from meeting you at that point?
I think it's a lot of like canon basis, just simply because, or like, the thing is, I have a lot of friends who are queer, so like, it's never that for them, but like, it always kind of just, I never honestly bring it up to them just simply because I'm scared they're like, oh, you're one of those people who like, you just think they're hot. You just think they're hot. Like, that's one thing that always comes up. Another thing that comes up is just, that makes no sense, or I prefer, or like, but they're with this person. Just like, kind of that ends up where it is. And I'm always tempted to be like, well, do you like this canon couple? And if they say no, I'm like, that's the opposite of shipping.
Yeah. Do you find that they, like, the more you're in fandom, that this is a horrible analogy that makes it sound like so bad, but like the further you fall into it?
Yes, yes, I'm having that problem with Naruto right now. Like, I started Naruto in the first couple of episodes, it's like, whatever, and then like you get to episode 8 and it's like, I'm shipping Sasunaru, so now I'm like invested in this. So that happened, and it's like, do I want to keep watching the show, or do I want to look up the fan fiction? That always ends up happening with me. Like,
no, I know what you mean, where sometimes you even just stop the show, you're like, this could go horribly wrong, so let me stop now in this beautiful moment, and let's just this happy time, and let's...
fan fiction.
Do you find, though, that there are still things that surprise you?
Oh, yeah, again, that Family Guy thing with the whole, like... There are just so many things where it's like, I didn't expect that to be a ship. Or there'll be like movies or like where people end up like super shipping like the couple that was like in it, and I'm just like, this was like this, not that it was like a canon couple, that like that doesn't bother me, but what like gets me weird about it is just like they'll have like little screen time and like no chemistry, and it's like always one of those pairings where it's like they're just a pairing because they're a pair, because like they wanted a couple in the movie or something like that. And I'm like, do people actually like write fan fiction about, okay, people write fan fiction about this, like, and looking back, like I'm thinking about Frozen right now, and just like, oh, maybe that's not as uncommon as I thought it was, because people were making like ships for like the main couple in Anastasia or like something like that, and I'm like, what, this is a thing? And then I completely forgot that Frozen was a thing, so yeah.
Yeah, no, and people are keeping the Frozen thing alive. I'm impressed. I'm like, that's right. We're going to keep this alive until Frozen 2.
Oh, I knew people were keeping the Frozen thing alive. There's a reason it wasn't Once Upon a Time. There used to be an Elsa page, like...
Oh my gosh. I will never be over the Once Upon a Time pandering to Frozen.
Okay, so I came out shipping Frozen Swan in that, but like, I see your point. Like, I see your point. And with everything, with every other thing that came in that, like, they did their own thing with it, and then season 4 hit and it was like Disney all over, and it's like, okay, can you not, like,
It's like, I understand why they did it. It's one of those things where I'm like, I understand why they did it, and I can even have seen it working. For me, it was just the execution of it that very much fell very, very flat, and the fact that they were very much capitalizing on that moment. I mean, they're not the only thing to do that. Tons of things do that. But I was just like, years later, when people watch this without the context of the mania of everything that was happening, and perhaps they've never even seen Frozen at this point, this is just going to be very confusing. They
just said the movie existed and then went from there, and it's like, maybe you should tell like a different story. Like, I'm okay if they use the characters as long as they like tell a different story, but they didn't. They just continued on from Frozen, and they did the same thing with Brave. But I liked the Brave arc better, but at the same time I hated season 5 more. So like, which one did I actually like better? Who knows? And I think that's just because Brave didn't take off as much, so that might also be it.
Well, also because at that point, like, everything was very rushed. Like, everything was very rushed and very quick, and like, things just started and then ended. And then it was just like, oh, it's over, and we didn't resolve it, but that's fine.
I think those half seasons, like, really killed the show. Like, it was fine in season 3 and then season 4, and it's like, wait, we're resolving this so fast? Like, I remember, watching it and just like, oh my god, how are they going to resolve this in, at the beginning, like, how are they going to drag this out for, 12, 11 episodes? And then, as we're getting to the end, I'm like, oh my god, how are they going to solve this in, 2 episodes? And, they ended it right before this mid-season finale, and I hate when did this. They would always end it right before the mid-season finale or the finale, and instead just have something completely different for those things just to set up the next season. And it's like, you could have used this time. You could have used it.
No, the pacing got real awkward, and it got real hard to, it's one of those things where it's because for me, I can stick with a show even if it's flawed. I just acknowledge the flaws. I'm like, this has problems. I still enjoy it though. It's still bringing me happiness and enjoyment, as flawed as it is. And that's how I tend to approach most things. So I think the thing that constantly surprises me about fandom is not that people get upset, but how genuinely angry, just how that transforms from a disappointment or a, this could have been executed better, or, this is potentially problematic, to a very harmful, regurgitating kind of anger that lashes out, because everybody who encounters it just ends up with this kind of very negative expectation of just all things, and it ends up reflecting badly on a lot of things, on shipping, on fandom, on social media platforms, just on a whole bunch of things. And then you'll see exactly, and then you'll see all of these articles about social media, the downfall of mankind, and all of those kind of things. And it's just there are two sides. There are two sides to everything, and as negative as social media can be, it can also be extremely positive and wonderful. It just depends on what is occurring and how people use it. I am a big advocate for personal responsibility on these platforms, and that movement that's becoming bigger of disconnecting and taking a moment before you post, I think is very important.
That's move. Take a moment, think about it that way, but just think about what you're gonna say, and it's can you add some logic to it? It's maybe I shouldn't post this in an essay that justifies everything because of that, just to explain all my feelings, why they're happening. I think I went off in one of your comment section and then just turned it.
You did, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I love that though. I love seeing really detailed explanations and stuff as to why people think the way that they do.
Me too, but I always liking them, and then I end up liking them. I'm I'm gonna read it later, and then this now ends up being over 10,000. So I try to go through them all. I'm down to 5,000.
That's, you know what? That's actually,
good.
like, liking something for later brings up a thing that I've been pondering for a while. So I shall pose it to you. I've noticed a lot, especially recently, that like creators cast various people in like some kind of production capacity on a project will get a lot of flack for what they like or don't like on social media. And I've often wondered, I'm like, is it fair to place such a high estimation on what a person likes? I'm like, a lot of people like things to bookmark them for later, or they just think that they're pretty, or they want to remember it and they don't want to have a million screenshots on their computer. Like, there are many reasons why a person might like something. I look at everything. Like, I look at ships I ship, ships I don't ship, tags I like, tags I don't like, just absolutely everything I will look at and like things unilaterally. So I find that I have a hard time when people are banning terms like, oh, I don't ship this, but I love this art, as saying that, say that is problematic and harmful and hateful. And I don't know. I think that it's all right to express that perhaps you don't ship a ship, but you enjoyed this work anyway in spite of it, or you enjoyed this art in spite of it, or to acknowledge that people may be in places where that might not be their dominant ship or something they're particularly always interested in, but they're still there checking out the work and enjoying it and potentially sharing it and spreading it around. And I think it's not necessarily harmful, but it's definitely a narrow-minded mindset to assume that everybody on a ship page or a piece of art or something is there because that's their dominant ship and that is why they are there. It's like there are lots of other reasons why you might be there, and it might not also be to hate either. Like, those aren't just the two options. It's not a love or hate scenario.
Sometimes sometimes it's just, like it. Also, I've noticed, this is the thing I've been noticing, like, I'll like something that was like something about something super recent and is like super passionate, and like I won't reblog it, and then I'll go back and it's like I'm glad I didn't reblog that, and I'll unlike it, and it's just like I'm so glad, like and it can, looking back on things, it'll like change your opinion. Like, I'll see things from like 6 years ago and I'm like, I can't believe that,
What is something that you find would be something that you wouldn't want to reblog, like, let's say, or like something that you would go back and unlike?
I keep bringing up Voltron. I shouldn't. The whole thing. We know what the thing is. And I like had accepted the apology from Wikia. At point, like, my anger was at the studio for like placing so many like restrictions, and then also at whoever it was to just keep talking about Adam. Like, that's where my anger was like placed. And so I was looking through it and I was just like, I'm so tired. I don't care. Like, I'm gonna write my fic and that's it. So doing all that, like, not because like I don't understand, but like I didn't want to deal with it. And I keep and like there's also like some things where like I'll like them after an episode happened, and then just like a week later they're no longer important. I remember this time where I was watching an episode of Supernatural, and like Dean mentions, oh, there was an angel wing and angel feathers in like the back of the trunk. And, like, the fandom was like, there's angel feathers, and I'm like that, and like a month later, and it was like, this isn't important anymore. Like, it was like 4 years ago, and even then I knew, like, it's not important. I don't need to be focusing on this anymore. So yeah, and it wasn't like funny or anything. It was just so no point to liking it. So
for me personally, like, I keep all of my likes. The only thing is now, especially when I'm planning on doing the rec series, I am a bit concerned, but I will still rec stuff that I feel that others might find problematic, but with the disclaimer to not go there. My only, like, if it bothers you, don't go there. But my only concern is that I do find that some people will still seek stuff out and go there, just out of like an extra sense of indignation. Because I've been a lot of places in like sub fandoms that people might find problematic or what have you, and I'm just like, those people are well aware of how you feel.
I don't need to justify myself to you.
There are two things that have happened. Either so many people have thrown so much at them that they're not listening anymore, and they are just doing what they want to do, or you've bullied people off. And I'm kind of like, well, neither one of those things is very positive, because then you have people who can't even listen to any legitimate criticism because it's buried underneath all of like this hate-filled exaggerations and hyperbole. Or you have people who were just genuinely trying to create something that they enjoyed or liked, or they were working through, or whatever the reason was they were creating it. Most likely it wasn't negative. Not to say that there aren't people who don't create things for negative reasons, because there are. But on the most part, you know, most people who get into fandom and stuff are just trying to express their enjoyment for the concept outside of, you know, the show, and to keep it going. And so at that point, all you've done is bullied somebody off a space that was trying to enjoy themselves and engage. And I'm like, well, neither one of those things is very positive, in my opinion, at least. I know that mileage varies, of course.
You bring up creating things out of hate. People have made ship pages out of hate, and instead of like spit them out, it's just, this ship is disgusting. How could you ship this? And it's like, okay, you're banned, and now we have to fill it out correctly now. Thanks. You just did the opposite of what you want to do. We're not going to delete it just because you don't like it.
I know, now like, it's a page.
So you have to deal with it now. Your own fault.
No, it's just, it's a fascinating concept, because the thing is that you don't have to like everything. Of course not. And of course you can go on and be like, I think this ship is awful. I don't like it for X, Y, Z, and whatever the many reasons. Maybe there are lots of reasons, you know, maybe those reasons make sense. But at the same time, not everybody's going to agree with that. And there are going to be people who enjoy it for their own reasons. And it's important to acknowledge that there are other people out there with other mindsets, other viewpoints, who might be getting something completely different out of it than the reason why you hate it. And I think that's always important to remember, because I have seen lots of things that they start off fine, and they start off with like, I don't like this because XYZ, and I'm like, okay, and then by the end it's devolved into like, and I hope that this person loses their job and that their family burns in hell, and you're like, how did this happen? Like, how did we get here? We started off so well.
That's like why I don't even bother like posting like a ship or critiques, because like someone else is going to be like, yeah, I agree, and I also don't like it for this reason, and I don't also don't for this reason, and I hope everyone dies. Oh, okay. I was talking about how I feel like they're more of a friendship. You're talking about killing people. Please do not.
I know, it's always very much like that, escalated quickly. And okay, so that brings up another question that I've been pondering. Because a lot of people look at these instances from the outside looking in. And so you get a lot of, you know, mainstream people just looking at, like, those fans, you know, shaking their heads like those fans can't, you know, keep their stuff together, and, like, and then you have the fans who will respond and be like, well, if the studios could get their stuff together, then we wouldn't have to. And so my question is, how much responsibility do you think lays on each side? Like, how much do you think it's up to fans to not overreact, and how much do you think it's up to studios to understand the expectations that their fandoms have placed upon them?
Well, on the one hand, the creators are trying to make the story that like they want to tell. On the out there, everyone's having reactions and stuff. But I think there needs to be a responsibility on the fans to understand that like it, as much it is still like the fan story, it is still also the creator's story. But it also needs to be understood by the creators that like people are going to have reactions, and not all of them are going to be positive, and not all of them are going to be like, hey, we act like this thing that happened, or this canon couple, and it's like people are going to write fan fiction, and like obviously it doesn't happen like as bit on like such a big level for like every single thing, but it still happens, and obviously like some of it like gets big, and like it's such a hard question, because like sometimes you can't stop fans. Like sometimes they're like, okay, we'll take responsibility for a thing, but then like what ends up happening is you get super passionate, and it's like logic is thrown out the window. So yeah, I try and keep logic out the window. So
have you ever been in a scenario where you're in a fandom and you see like an extreme fan reaction and you just don't agree with it at all? Like, have you ever been in that situation?
Anything involving Voltron fandom and Lance. Character development, like calm down. Like the only thing I agree with character development in Voltron is that Hunk needs more screen time. So like, yeah, he got his screen time, guys. He's fine. But keeps happening, and then any okay, I'm gonna say this, and so many of my friends are gonna hate me if they ever see this, but I think Clexa had the biggest overreaction ever, just simply because, like, everyone, it was probably better in their heads than it actually was in canon. And I'm talking to my sister who actually watched the 100, and she's like, yeah, no, like they barely have any screen time together before their first kiss. Like they barely do anything as a couple. And like on the one hand, how Lexa died was complete and total bullshit. Like I can think of like 5 ways in which like they could have gotten rid of her without killing her off. Like, but they also didn't again realize like ugh, that's a thing. But I'm not even in the 100 fandom, and it just like to me, like the fact that it's still going on just kind of scares me a bit. Like so many of my friends are like, it's the greatest thing ever, and I'm like, please calm down. I don't want to hear about it anymore. Like I'm tired. I'm tired. This happened 5 years ago. Let me complain about other things. Or complain about something different. I don't know.
So are you in multiple fandoms at the same time?
Yeah, but normally when it's like super recent, like I just kind of stay in that one fandom for like a couple of hours and then I'm like, okay, back to my mishmash of everything. Yeah, and or like if I get into something new, what ends up happening is my dashboard ends up like just being that thing for like a day or two, like sometimes a week if I super like it. So that ends up happening. But most of the time it's like, okay, I'll blog things from the Arrowverse or Marvel or like other things like that.
So when you find that fandom is being tiring or it's just currently like a trying space to be, like what do you do to like decompress from fandom?
What do I do to decompress from fandom? Like there are certain podcasts I'll listen to that have nothing to do with fandom. What else do I do? I just kind of end up like looking for like new media content and then just like not doing anything involving it. Like I don't know why, but I can't really get into the comic book fandom itself. Like certain things, like certain ships, yes, but like other things, it's like, oh, do I want to know what everyone thinks about the Wicked and the Vine? No, not really. I like it. It's fine. I'm not looking for the fan fiction. Do I want to know how people feel about Gwenpool? I'm only saying that because it's like right next to me.
Yeah.
Not really. I don't really care. Like comic fan. As much as it like should be getting me riled up, like it's not. It's really not, except for that Hydra Cap thing. But like that was stupid.
Hail Hydra, that panel. Every time I see it, I laugh.
Every time I see it, I think of like that meme that everyone did where it was like Spider-Man, I killed Uncle Ben, and then like they get to Deadpool, and Deadpool's like, I don't like chimichangas, and it's like he doesn't actually like chimichangas. So
for me, I do have fandoms that have nothing to do with the extra material, and I find that that does help, and it's nice. Or I go back to fandoms that people would describe as quote-unquote dead. They are not dead, but they just are not as active as they were in their heyday. And so I'll often go back and read some of my favorite fics, or just hang out in a smaller fandom where there's less going on. I'm in a lot of really obscure, random, small fandoms, which is why I started Surprise Ships.
My favorite show is a BBC zombie like drama called In the Flesh that like had 9 episodes, and just like I love it so much, and like but it has the most dead fandom ever, and I'm still upset there was no season 3, and like it ended on a cliffhanger. Like I'm forever mad, but at the same time like I'm staying out of like, even if I go into fandom for that, like it's super calm, like just simply because it's over. And then I love going into the Deep Space Nine tag because it's just 80% Garashir. Like, yeah. It's like, what did we all take away from Deep Space Nine? Like the morals, the meanings, all this. Like, no, we took away Garashir.
A lot of times it is nice to revisit a fandom, I find, once everything is done and everything is settled, and you can look at everything, and I find that to be a very interesting standpoint to analyze things from, because being in an active fandom is fun too, but the thing is that a lot of times it moves so quickly. It's very rapid, and especially if you're trying to do other things, it can be difficult to keep up. And so it's, you blink and you turn around and 8 things have happened, and you're like, how? It's only been a day. How did this happen?
Yeah, that happened with me with like once. Like I was super into it like season 3, beginning of season 4, and then like post like the mid-season, like I would just spend my entire day in like the Tumblr tag for once, like where are the spoilers? Where's like everything? And then like I get like halfway through season 4, like I didn't care that much anymore, and was I into something new? I don't remember. It's been so long. It's been 3 years, maybe longer. I don't know. What's time? But and like I remember after the reveal that Zelina was alive. Spoiler alert for people. That everyone was like, "Oh, we already knew," because there were like set photos, and I wasn't looking up the set photos anymore, so I didn't know. So it was shocking to me, and everyone's like, "It's not shocking." I'm like, "Well, it's shocking to me."
I think that's interesting too, the tiering of fandoms, because people tend to forget that not everybody is looking at all of the behind the scenes things and the interviews and the press tour and everything that is constantly happening in regards to it. And sometimes I do ponder whether or not, if it's even possible or feasible at this point, there should be less of those things. I sometimes wonder if that would lessen some of the pre-release judgments.
Again, it's the reason I don't watch the trailer, because everything gets spoiled, because, you know, everything just happens. And we actually made an announcement like post Comic-Con, like, hey, don't post spoilers for Comic-Con from like things that are going to happen at Comic-Con just before the like this new season of the show airs, unless it's like a casting thing. Like at most you can do that on like the fandom pages. So yeah, because a thing happened. That's the thing. And some of those pages we ended up locking just to be safe, but like everything else, it was like, hey, not everyone's looking. Like some people, I know it should be expected that if you're on the shipping wiki, you're probably looking, but at the same time, not everyone's looking. So we got to be nice to those people.
Yeah, the shift in how things are released from cons is very fascinating, because I remember it used to be hard to find things, and like things would happen and you would hear about them, but you'd have to search, and then maybe there'd be one, like, you know, one lone soul, one rebel who uploaded his camera footage to the internet, Periscope shaky cam, and it was really hard to find stuff. And now it just seems like people almost go in with the intent of, I'm going to share this, I'm going to post it out to the world.
Like people will, you know how many versions of like different panels I've seen? Like 20 million. Like I remember when I was like 14, I was weirdly obsessed with Tara Strong, and like I would like go into like upload date every day just to see if there was a new panel, and I was so upset when it was just a repeat of another panel, because like 20 different people would upload it. And like nowadays it's you're gonna get like a million different versions, and like somehow people will upload like whatever they see from Comic-Con. Like I almost watched the first episode of Voltron season 7 illegally because someone actually did it, and like it didn't get taken down. I almost did it. I was so tempted to, because I love fan reactions. Like I love seeing that. It makes me, it's a different feeling. I don't know why.
It's very different when you're watching with people who are also like anticipating it, you know, the same way that you are. And it's a very different vibe, and hence you get a very different reaction, which is sometimes why the reaction at Comic-Con is so very different than the reaction of people who see it after or outside of it, because it's a completely different vibe and feeling.
That's kind of why I enjoy going to Thursday night showings. Like they have the best reactions. Like,
everybody's so keen at the Thursday night showing. It's pretty great.
So I loved The Force Awakens more, but I loved my theater experience for The Last Jedi more, just simply because I saw The Last Jedi on a Thursday night showing, and The Force Awakens I saw a week after it happened. So like I went in and I'm like, oh, everyone's gonna have great reactions, and like, oh, I'm gonna cheer when Han Solo is on, and it's like, oh, I'm the only one cheering. Okay. Honestly, I think my best one was Infinity War. Like, they had, like, all the proper reaction. The entire theater gasped when, like, Tony got stabbed or when Red Skull showed up. But my favorite reaction only happened in my theater because during the Star-Lord and Gamora kiss, like, theater silent, no one's reacting, and you just hear this little kid go, ew. The entire theater just burst out laughing, and just, like, every time I think about it, I don't stop.
That's so great. I liked my theater because we had the purposeful trolls. So when the the theme's playing and everything, just a row of guys, na 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 na. I was just like, okay, it's gonna be that kind of show. I'm excited. I'm excited. I like the annoying audience, but honestly, that's a good warning. If you don't like that, don't go on Thursday. wait the week.
I actually hate going into Star Wars no matter what, because I always think of that one Vine where it's like, turn off the flash, you moron. I love that Vine, but like, no, you've ruined Star Wars for me.
I miss going on Thursdays. I can't go as often anymore, and I'm so amused that like my most recent one was a Slender Man show.
I still need to see that. I need to see that like so badly. I'm just like, please, I need to make fun of this so much. Like,
that's what it is. And it's weird because sometimes I go into things, and not that I want to ship anything, but I'm just excited and curious to see whether it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, oftentimes I'm more surprised when it doesn't. Like, I'll go home and I'll be like, yes, this, and then I'll go and I'm like, nobody, just me? Okay. Only me? Alright, it's okay. But I'm genuinely more surprised, like, because usually there's something that you can take out of it. And again, it's not purposeful. It's not a shipping goggles kind of thing. It's just, I find the more that you are in shipping fandom, the easier it is to see certain tropes or pick up on certain vibes or things that you can see transforming into like a full-fledged ship that people can get behind.
Yeah.
But with Slender, no.
Well, maybe we ship Slender Man and the girl. You don't know.
They would have had
to self-insert. That's what it is.
Honestly, they would have had to like try harder with Slender Man to make that happen.
Slender Man they didn't have enough screen time, okay? Okay. And that's actually not a justification for a ship. Like, I know that.
Disappointment. This can be me at every horror movie in between now and Halloween. Just like, boo, no ships.
I'm horrible at horror movies. I'm like, I'm gonna watch this horror movie, and I'm like, but do I want to? Like, they just seem like they always bore me. I don't know why. Like, occasionally there's jump scares, but like most of the time I'm like, I'm bored. I'm
not a fan of the auditory jump scare because it's so manipulative, and I do so much editing and audio editing that I'm like, well, that's not a scare. You've just startled the audience into having a visceral physical reaction. Like, nothing scary actually happened. Everybody jumps when, like, you're alone in the house and, like, a pot falls over or something. It's not, to me, like, that's not building atmosphere. I mean, of course it is, like, technically, with sound and layers and stuff, yes. But I'm talking about, like, narrative atmosphere. Like, you did not build or earn a narrative atmosphere with your loud piano sting. It is not the same thing.
I'm trying to think. Like, maybe when I was little, there were horror movies that scared me, but, like, now it's just, like, I don't, Like, my sister makes fun of them. My little sister makes fun of them all the time. She's like, I went to go see The Conjuring, and, like, on the one hand, it was scary. On the other hand, we're going to make fun of it for the next, like, half hour. And I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Because the thing, I think, for good horror is you need to at least be able to suspend disbelief enough to believe that this could in some way occur. You need to be able to be afraid that something like this or something about it frightens you. That if you were in this situation, it would freak you out. A lot of times I find that they just don't quite get there anymore.
That's probably why, like, so many people are still scared of, like, Silence of the Lambs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my mom, like, she, like, thinks it's, like, the scariest thing in the world, and I'm just like, meh. But then again, like, I had watched Hannibal beforehand.
And it ruined it with all its, like, sensual, like, Hannibal.
Again, I keep bringing up my little sister, but, like, she watched it because I recommended it to her because, like, I also recommended Gotham to her, and her favorite thing about Gotham was just, like, their very creative way of killing things. Yeah. So that I'm like, hey, you're gonna like this. And she's like, I love it. I love it so much. Like, and I'm like, there's a dude who, like, they play a dude's vocal cords like a cello, and she's like, oh my god, get me to this episode. I'm like, it's my favorite episode of season 1. So. Sorry, I'm at the library, and they told me to, like, not talk so loud.
That's happened to me at the library, so I can...
I don't talk at the library. That's the first time that's happened to me. So.
I'm always at the library, or I was, rather, for some form of group study.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I can't do group study. Like, no, no.
I think the last horror movie that freaked me out, and I didn't think it was freaking me out while I was watching it, but it was It Follows. And then afterwards, I just had like this really like visceral feeling, and I was like, yeah, I see what they tapped into. The idea of like something following you just constantly, I'm like, creepy. It's creepy. I get it. I understand why it kind of like skeeves me out, because everybody's had that thing where you're walking and like someone's walking behind you for a really long time, and you're like, why is this person still walking behind me?
I was listening to a podcast about that movie just simply because I do that, and they said like that was the feeling that like they kept getting like during the movie. It was like, oh, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. But then like the second it ended, it was like, oh, this is happening. Like, I'm scared. I'm alone in my apartment. I'm scared. And so
It was like, it reminded me of that classic feeling that I didn't get, but a lot of people got after they saw The Ring, where, you know, they're like, whatever, and then their phone rang, and they're like, no.
No. Well, now everyone's phones are on like vibrate now, so no one's gonna get that feeling anymore.
I know, all those landline-based like horror movies and stuff, they're just a lot of the fear of certain tech-based horror movies from back in the day. It's just not going to translate very well. Like, you're watching some of them, like, quick, we got to get to the video store. I'm like, oh no.
We passed a video store, like there's a video store like a couple towns over, and like my one friend who lives in town, she's like, yeah, it's a front for drug money. So
there's one that's lingering by where I live, and I'm like, but how though? Like, I don't understand. Like, who goes here? I need to know.
Drug money.
I think, like, bringing it back to, like, shipping and fan fiction for
yeah,
a bit.
we
like,
should probably do that.
Like, that's another interesting thing. Like, when you look at it, especially, and you can do it for a variety of ways. You can do it for a long time period, like decades or years, or even just as a show is on. Watching different reactions, different types of fics, and it's almost like a time capsule of what the fandom was thinking and feeling as they were going through it. And that's very interesting, especially if you look at it from a societal point too, because like there are certain things that people, they don't want to think they're trends, but they are, especially in fiction. This happens a lot when certain topics come up and people will be like, no, it's because people are more aware and they're right. I'm like, no, it's because people are talking about it now, and so you're going to see a burst of like fics with it, and then eventually it will go back to like nobody's going to talk about it for the most part.
That's why we have that like fanon section, just so like people are like, they can't forget like this happened. Like before the Adachi page was made. Stop bringing up Voltron, Riley, but no, I'm gonna keep doing it. Like I was like working on it in a Google Doc simply because like I was waiting for like season 7 to air, and like it was so because of that fanon section, like watching like it go from like this is the greatest thing in the world to like this is the worst thing in the world, and like people are probably gonna forget that at some point like they praised it, or like at some point that like they hated it. So like it's gotta be there, and like there are so many ships where it's like, hey, I don't know what was going on like throughout the entire time, and like I hate looking at the fanon section because it's like, what's going on? What happened? Like I don't know what people's reactions were. Oh, I'm so upset. Like I can do things like kind of easily just simply because it's like so recorded. Like I don't know what the reactions to Digimon ships were. Like you think there wouldn't be Digimon ships, but there are Digimon ships.
Oh, there are lots, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like I don't know how people were shipping these two characters, or like what the fan fiction is, because not in that fandom. I was ever into Digimon. So I can't fill out that section. Versus say it was something like the Tyrell Elliott from Mr. Robot. I don't watch Mr. Robot, but I know what's going on there because it's currently happening. So at the very least, I'm getting like a secondhand reaction.
And I think it's important to be able to track the reaction because, again, like Voltron's a good example because, like, as I was working on it, and I was like, this ship name is going to change because Adachi is a better name.
Yeah.
And so, but while I was doing it, it was Shadow, and I was like, I need to call it the name that it currently is because if I call it Adachi and by some fluke or quirk, Adachi somehow does not become the name, that's going to be very annoying. So that's why I prefaced it always by saying, like, okay, like, people want it to be Adachi, like, don't judge me, right now it's Shadow, because, and, like, watching that, It was very interesting to see people
God.
go from I love it to this betrayed me. It was very, very interesting to see that, because for some people, I think even they themselves, like, the fact that they liked it was erased and completely gone and, like, all spoiled because of how it was represented. It actually ended up playing out. A lot of blame is being misattributed too, and that's very, like, sad when you see people attacking like voice actors and even certain things about like different countries aired it with this, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's their decision though. Every broadcasting network for their own thing uses whatever take they want. That's their prerogative.
I actually found it hilarious because in Japan, like, they like extra censor it and like have him explicitly say, "I'm your best friend."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you guys have Yuri on Ice. You guys have Yuri on Ice, and you want to censor that happen. And I was actually like going on to extra tricks. On the one hand, like, Clance is always number one. On the other hand, is a good way to like tell which ships are like popular.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was when it changed from like Shatum to a, like, I was like, thank God. People are living in fandom. Like, it's AO3 page is like updating like super fast. I'll like read a fic and then I'll go back and it's like, oh, there's 20 more new fics. Great.
That one's a lot to keep up with, and I can see why people, especially now, who are just like, should I get on board? Should I not get on board? Like, it's a bit daunting to be considering.
20 years from now, it'll be calm.
It depends what's happening.
Yeah.
It depends what's happening and where you are. You can find calm sections, and then you can find not calm sections.
The Discovery one is not going to be calm for a while, I feel like. And people who are just like getting into Star Trek like right now, they don't know that. Like, they don't know that Star Trek has a history of that. But like, then people who are still just not have been in Star Trek for a while, they sometimes like forget that. They're like, TNG is the greatest. I'm like, except for season 1, right? Like, you're gonna say that. And then it's like, no, it's like the greatest. Like, this is nothing compared to TNG. I'm like, compared to TNG season 1, honey, this is. There's
some season 1 episodes that I really like, but on the whole, it's like you can judge the show by like beardless Riker. You're like, does Riker have a beard yet? Like, is his beard there?
And I like season 1 for the sole fact that Tasha Yar is in it. And
I like Tasha a lot.
Yes, she's my favorite TNG character, and everyone else is like, really? Like,
I really liked Tasha. Like, I really did. And like, I was always like forever sad that she left to pursue other things, because I'm like, girl, no. And I'm glad that they got her back how they could, but I'm just like, I still miss Tasha. And it could have been with all the Tasha things that they were building to. I was just like, she had so many interesting relationships with so many of the different characters that I was like into and wanted to see more of, and I'm like, there's sadness.
I like cried every single time she died in that show, and the first time, the second time, the third time in the finale. Like, why would you do that to me? Like, really?
Her first death, I remember, because I was so little. Like, it freaked me out. Like, the monster really scared me, because I saw that when I was really little. And then years later, I remember I was reading a Star Trek behind the scenes book where they said he was made of garbage bags covered in oil, and then it just ruined everything. I was like, oh, well, that's not scary at all, is it?
Low budget TNG.
Low budget TNG is best TNG. Like, I have this weird thing where, like, with Discovery, and this is such a weird thing, and I'm like, I am such
it's too high budget.
Not that. I'm such a Star Trek nerd. I'm like, their uniforms look too comfortable. I'm like, who said you could be on the bridge and have comfort? Get out of here.
I don't think they're like the most comfortable metal parts, like the silvery like parts, and probably have to get replacement uniforms.
But no one has to do the Picard maneuver. So when he has to stand up, and every time he has to pull it down to the point where they finally gave him that like jacket that he just opens. I kind of love how off topic we are.
You think I didn't create the Star Trek page on the wiki? You think I didn't create the Spark page?
That's the thing with fandom, though, is that I do think that people forget this too, is that there are people who are mono fandom based, where it's just like one fandom, all the time, and that's it. And that may even be their only fandom. Like, you don't know. Like, some people only get into one thing, and that's fine. Like, there's no proper way to fandom. Like, it hits you or it doesn't hit you. Like, whatever. Different strokes for different folks. But there are also a significant number of people who are just chronic fandomers, I guess. Perpetual fandom people who will just always be in different fandoms, hopping back and forth. And I think that can also be the source of some different perspectives, and not everybody always considers, is that when you're cross fandoming like that, a lot of times a situation will happen. It's like, you've seen it all before.
You've seen it all.
Yeah.
This is where the salt comes from. My favorite person is the manager that's been watching Naruto, so like she's mono fandom. That's fun.
Well, even though we have gotten off topic, I have to say that this was a lot of fun.
Things I wanted to talk about. Yeah.
But I do have to go at the moment, but we can potentially talk again and get off topic again. Thank you so much. It was a long time coming, so enjoy the rest of your day, and I will leave you to the library, and I will go and get my daughter and do all those things. So yes, thank you so much for chatting with me, and hopefully we will talk again soon.
Right.
Bye-bye. If you made it to the end, you are, as always, troopers. Let me know that you made it here by answering a question. Have you ever made your own Wikia page? If so, what was it on? And also, do you check out Wikias when you're looking up a ship or a fandom? Let me know down below. As always, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend it discussing fandom with me. There are, as always, more videos coming soon, so if you haven't already, please do subscribe or hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. I will, of course, be seeing all of you again, and until then, let's get to the outro. Bye-bye. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to all of my patrons, names on the side, for helping to make these videos possible. There are, as always, more videos coming soon, so until then, stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.